Welcome back to the More Than Gardening YouTube page. I am so excited to make this video today. This is a day I have been waiting for almost 6 months. I am going to take you through harvesting my onions and setting them up to cure for the next few weeks. That way they can get that nice dry skin and last a really long time in storage. And while I do this and while I pull my onions, I'm going to talk you through what I did this season to grow my onions and what worked and what I think attributed them to being such good size onions. And I'm gonna also tell you guys a few things that I'm gonna change for next year to hopefully get an even better harvest. But first, before I start pulling them from the ground, I wanna show you what they're looking like. This is my bed of onions. It is a 4x8 raised bed. And I have yellow onions and I have red onions, just 2 varieties in this bed. And I will leave in the description the exact varieties that they are, a link to the seeds, because I think they did really well. For context, I'm in Michigan zone 6A. I started these seeds at the end of January. I planted them out mid-April, and I do have a video on my page of me planting these out and what I did to the soil to prepare them. This is my first year growing onions, and I did it from seed because everybody said that if you want really big onions, you should grow them from seed. It gives you the best chance. So that's what I did. And for it being my first year, and honestly for it being any year, I'm really happy with how they've turned out and how they've grown. So I'm letting you guys know how I did it and giving you some information. So if you are nervous or have been intimidated to try growing onions, let this be your sign that it is not as difficult as people say. This was my first year. If I'm able to get these onions, so can you. The first thing I want to show you is how I know that they're ready to harvest. You look at your onions, and this is the neck of it. Once this starts to break and it flops over and this goes soft, that's how you know this onion is ready to come out of the ground. And I will show you versus, I've got just probably 2 or 3 onions on this side of the bed that aren't ready, that will stay in the ground today. You can see it's still nice and straight. It's leaning a little bit just from wind, but the neck hasn't broken. It's not soft, it's still hard. So this one will stay in the ground today. Then if you look at this one next to it, I mean, this is totally flopped over. And once these necks break and they flop over, they're done growing, they're done pulling nutrients from the soil, so you can go ahead and pull them. First thing I want to go over about growing my onions, starting with the soil. When I planted out my seedlings, this was a mix of 50-50 compost and topsoil. So the compost adds a lot of good organic nutrients, which feed the onion through the season in order for them to grow big and strong. In addition to that compost, I also put in fertilizer. I did Dr. Earth's for this one. It's just like a general purpose, all around good fertilizer, and I worked it into the soil. And that was pretty much the bulk of my fertilizing once they were in the ground. I did go through with a liquid fertilizer mixed with water in a watering can, and I put that through here probably like 1 or 2 times, but I really didn't feed them a lot once they got in the ground. And that is the first thing I'm going to change for next year. I think if I would have fed them a little bit more after planting, maybe they could have gotten bigger. So that is the first thing next year that I will do differently. If you saw my video when I was planting my onions, you'll also remember that some of these seedlings were in their own seed cell in those 6-pack trays, and some of them were 2 or 3 onions in one cell together. And when I was planting them, the ones that were in this single cell together, they were already a bit further along at the time of planting, versus the one there was 2 or 3 kind of bunched together in one cell, and then I separated them to plant. Those were a bit smaller. So next season, I'm gonna give every onion its own seed cell. That way it has enough room from the time where it started inside to the time that it's a seedling planted out here, where it has space in that cell to grow and be the biggest possible seedling it can be before going into the ground. The last thing before I start pulling these up and showing you how good these look is the timing of planting them outside. Now these onions, I started them the last week of January, and I planted them out mid-April, and I planted them 4 weeks before my last frost date in May. I could have probably planted them about 6 weeks before my last frost date. That's what the seed packet actually recommends. And there is a seaplane flying above me, so if you can hear that noise, I apologize. But the seed packet said 4 to 6 weeks. The only reason I waited until 4 weeks and didn't do it earlier at that 6-week mark, which would have been probably right in the beginning of April, is because these raised beds were not ready. If you have been following along on my channel and on Instagram, you will know that we built this garden this year. These raised beds went in probably at the end of March, and then they got filled with soil. So these onions were the first thing that were planted. This was the first bed filled with soil, the first bed that was ready. And we just physically did not have this space to grow them until 4 weeks before the last frost. So that's why they went in. But next year, this bed will already be here. We'll likely rotate the crop, so I probably won't do onions in this bed specifically next year, but in general, they will go into the garden 6 weeks before my last frost next year, not 4 weeks. That way they can get out sooner, get more room sooner, get more nutrients from the compost, and just get out of those seed cells, because those are a great medium to start your seeds, but you don't want them in there forever. We'll show you this first onion is a pretty good size. I mean, it's not like a softball. It's not, but this is a beautiful onion. And this, I'm very happy with this. So without further ado, let's get through here and pull all these onions. Not every onion ended up really good. So this one I probably won't cure. Here's that plane again. This one will probably just get eaten fresh. Again, another small one. That's okay. Small, medium. That's a good one. That is a good size onion. Moving on to my red onions, you can see that one. So to pull them out, I just give it a little twist and pull. And look at that onion, that's a nice size. Add it to my laundry basket. This one here, this one's actually still pretty, oh no, just kidding. This one's gotta come out. Pull it out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the rest of these, and then I'll take you inside and show you how I'm curing them. A couple more things to mention about the onions that I chose are that these are long day and intermediate day onions. The 3 different types of onion seeds you can buy are short day, intermediate day, and long day. And those have to do with the actual length of your day, dependent on where you are in the country or where you are in relation to the equator. So with me being in Michigan and being so north and I'm farther, I have longer days in the summer. So I'm growing long day, and I can also get away with some of these intermediate day onions because they will bulb based on the hours of the day that they are getting sun. So make sure to pay attention to that on seed packets when you're buying your onions. And another thing I wanted to mention is the timing of when I started my seeds. Like I said in this video, I started them the last week of January, and I think next season I'm gonna go ahead and start them about 3 to 4 weeks earlier, just to see if that gets me a little bigger of a seedling before they go outside. Now that mixed with planting them outside sooner, I think will get me a bigger onion next year. These are all of the onions out of the raised bed and just in this basket, and now I'm gonna set them up to cure. And I am using these racks. These are the same racks I used to start all of my seeds this spring. I will leave a link to these in the description, and these actually, they're great. They come with all of these different lights. I've just removed them, that way I can use them for the onions for curing. So I'm gonna set these up, I'm gonna put all the onions on, and I'm probably gonna wheel them outside, that way these onions can cure in the hot sun a little bit. But after today, they will come back in this room, and I'll set up a fan to blow on them to help cure. And they will be in here for about 2 to 3 weeks. So onions take about 2 to 3 weeks to cure. You'll know that they're cured once they develop that thick papery skin, and that's what allows you to store them long term. Now, if you don't want to store your onions long term and you just want to enjoy them now, you can eat them now. You can eat onions at any time of the growing stage. I grew about, I will count them at the end of this, I think 48. That number just like is popping in my head. I think I grew 48 of them, so we can't get through 48 of them fresh. I have to cure mine. That's how a lot of people grow onions, is they'll grow a lot, cure them for storage, and enjoy them all fall and winter. Honestly, just looking at the size of these, like, they're good size. Like, this is a good size one, and I like this one, but I'm just looking at this harvest, and as happy as I am with them, I think a lot of them are gonna get used up pretty soon. Like, once my tomatoes are ready in the garden, I'm gonna be canning up a lot of salsa and a lot of pasta sauce, and I think these onions will get used in that. So yeah, we'll see. And it is so hot, you can probably tell. It's like 83 and sunny today, so this is a good hot day for these onions to cure outside. So let's get them set up on these racks. Let's get them outside and see what we're working with. Now you're gonna notice that I am not taking off any of the greens or any of the roots. I am leaving everything all intact together for this curing process. And I'm also layering these every other shelf because I think it's gonna be the best for airflow to give them all optimal space. And if you don't have a racking system like this, you can cure your onions outside just in the sun, either on top of the soil or on a table. You just need to make sure you can bring them inside or cover them if you have rain coming. You cannot let your onions get wet at all during this curing process, or you can just lay them on a table in a garage or a shed and have a fan blow on them to help with airflow and help dry them out. I have all of the red onions on this rack. I've got them well spaced, so none of them are really touching. And then because I have the room, I went ahead and alternated each shelf. So this one, they're over here with the greens hanging. Next one, they're on this side, and then so on. And then a few of these are on the ends. And this is probably the average size I've got for the red onions. Just let me get in the sun. Pretty good. Again, they're not massive, but I'm happy with this. I'm proud of this. And then over here is the yellow onions. Again, that same racking system. So on this side, this one here. These are pretty much set to dry out all day. And then before bed tonight, because it's gonna rain tomorrow, I'll wheel them back in this room, set up a fan, and they'll cure for the next 2 or 3 weeks. One last look at the size of these onions. This one right here, probably average size for the yellows. There's some smaller, there's some bigger, but probably average size. Again, happy about it for my first year. Beginning of this video, I told you guys what I did and what I think went well, and then what I'm gonna change next year when I plant these to hopefully get bigger. It was probably maybe a little bit sporadic, so in the description below, I'm gonna try to highlight some of those things. When I started the seeds, what seeds I started in what seed trays. I just use like a standard seed starting mix. I will explain what fertilizer I used. Pretty much all those details will be in the description, but if you got to this end of this video, thank you so much. I hope you found it valuable. I hope you enjoyed seeing the onions come out the ground and see what this harvest looks like, and hopefully you've gotten some sort of value out of it to grow better, bigger onions next year. Again, this was my first year. If I can do it, you can do it. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I put out content on gardening and a lot of beekeeping. And pretty soon here, once we start getting more in the garden, there'll be some content on canning and preserving everything from the garden. So let me know if you have any questions in the comment. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.